he needs to be with somebody who can fling the football and in an offense that wants to air it out. My number one team would be the Los Angeles Rams. I think that you got Matthew Stafford. He could definitely fling that football. You got Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. But this is a guy that can elevate your vertical game with a quarterback like Matt Stafford flinging that football with the kind of play calling that Sean McVay wants to do and the fact that they're going to throw the football more than they run it. I think that's a way to go. That would be number one on my list. Kansas City doesn't seem to put so much faith in anybody outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I would see what I could do about getting him in front of Patrick Mahomes. I think about the Baltimore Ravens. We know Hollywood Brown could play Bateman's back and what have you, but what's wrong with having another, a contribution to your vertical game outside of Hollywood Brown when Lamar Jackson has the escapability skills that he has and what he could do with something. So I'm looking at L.A. I'm looking at Kansas City. I'm looking at Baltimore. Of course, you're going to bring Green Bay into the mix, even though they got Valdez-Scantling, Lazard, of course, Randall Cobb, along with obviously Devontae Adams being that stud, again, with an Odell Beckham Jr. That's somebody that extends your vertical game, and we all know what Aaron Rodgers can do. And so when you look at it from that perspective and the fact that Odell Beckham Jr. would love to play with any of those quarterbacks, you're talking about a happier dude who's highly motivated with something to prove in a system where he knows he's going to get his share of looks. And that's where I'm at.
Dan, I want to stay with that subject really quickly because now we've seen what's happened with the New York Giants. Now we're seeing what's happening in Cleveland. So we're talking about top teams, and obviously we know what a special talent he is. Obviously some serious injuries, and some people thought maybe he's lost a step. That's debatable. But would you be concerned bringing him into your locker room?
It's a great question, Molly. Concerned, no. I would do my due diligence on what happened again in Cleveland. I'd have to have conversations with guys within that building, players within that building. I'd have guys in my locker room call guys on that team and figure out what happened. Was it more of a Baker thing or was it an Odell thing? Because we've heard the conversations of not getting the ball thrown to him in practice. So I would want guys calling the people within the Cleveland Browns player-wise to figure out exactly what it's been like. I wouldn't be concerned, but I would want to do my due diligence. And I would also say this, Molly, I think if he stays in Cleveland or whether he goes to a different team, if I was the quarterback or somebody that had input to that quarterback, I would make him call Eli Manning and figure out how Eli handled Odell on and off the field. Because he's the only quarterback that's got him to play well. He's the only quarterback that has had him perform at his absolute best. And I would have that quarterback reach out to Eli Manning. Maybe Eli communicated with him a certain way or talked about plays a certain way or handled them when he got him the ball a certain way or when he didn't get him the ball. I would want to know what happened in that Eli to Odell relationship that allowed Odell to thrive. And I would want my quarterback to have that conversation to see if he could learn something about Odell that obviously Baker Mayfield has not.
Well, Dan, I think you missed something here. Molly did too, but I'll forgive both of you because you're from Connecticut, so you wouldn't know any better. So let me help you out here. It wasn't Eli Manning that motivated Odell Beckham Jr. to play so well. It was New York City. It's just a different flavor. As I tried to educate Molly about, go to the Barclays Center and then come to the Garden, and you'll see the difference. It's night and day, y'all. It's night and day.
Is that why the L.A. connection for you?
Listen, the L.A., well, I'm the weather. The weather is what does it for me. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I have beautiful friends in L.A.
That's my quarterback.
L.A. is lovely. Right. Don't get me wrong. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is on a different level. The point that I'm trying to make is that you're in New York City, right? So the specter of being in New York, being in that bubble in all seriousness, y'all, it really, really matters because you're going to be held accountable in a way that may not be the case in Cleveland or somewhere else.
Hold on, time out. He's playing in the National Football League on national television. What bigger stage do you need? Why does it matter if he's with Cleveland, which people were saying had a chance to make it to the Super Bowl, or he's in New York, whether he plays well or not?
But when you ask those questions, Molly, you have to accept the answers even if you don't like them, because I'm about to give it to you. There's something to be said about being interested in the environment that you're in. For certain people, it's inspirational. Everybody has this little nugget, something that motivates you, that elevates you to another level. He's in New York first 2 seasons, has a 1,000+ yard season, gets hurt the 3rd year, comes back the next year, has another 1,000-yard season, goes to Cleveland his first year, 1,000-yard season. That wasn't the only place he had a 1,000-yard season in New York. He also had one in Cleveland. But here's the difference. You're under that spotlight in the bubble. You make one spectacular catch. What happens? You're getting endorsement deals out of the wazoo. You're able to capitalize off of your name and your brand. Take this into account. And Dan will know exactly where I'm coming from with this. You're playing in the National Football League. You got on helmets and shoulder pads. Your identity is disguised. There's very, very few people that get marketed in the National Football League. That's why it's such a big deal. Why do you think you see guys constantly looking at the camera and celebrating after they make a tackle, even though they gave up 30 points or something? Because everybody's looking for their one moment of shine, because unlike the NBA, the NFL players aren't as identifiable to the masses the way you are in other sports. So everybody looks for their own little nugget of capitalization. Okay. And if you're Odell Beckham Jr., you had that in New York. You don't have that now. And if you look at him, think about the bad rap he got, Molly.
But was he happy in New York?
He wasn't happy when Eli was sliding, but he was ecstatic before he wanted to win. But if he was getting the ball and they were winning games, that's exactly the kind of environment he wanted to be in. And then he got a bad rap. And let's think about this. He had one incident with some pizza and a woman in France or whatever, and that made news. Outside of that, y'all, tell me what Odell Beckham Jr. has made news for.
No, he's definitely mature.
I mean, he didn't get in any trouble.
No.
He hasn't done anything. So why should he be a concern for a team that he knows wants him, A, and B, will throw him the football? He's not going to be a problem.
My only rebuttal to you, Stephen A., is if we're going to say that he performed the level that he did in New York was tied to being in the city, then we can't say, or then you can't say that he should go to Kansas City or Green Bay. Because those cities are not New York City.
No, what's the first point? What's the first point I gave you? I talked about if you know you're going someplace. No, I'm not talking about the team. I'm saying my point was if you're going to throw him the football and he knows that he's got somebody who can throw him the football. I said Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, guys like that. If you're going to throw him the football, I mean, you're going to be happy because you're going to win.
All right.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.